A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
And away we go. Episode 1104 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, and I am back from vacation. I am happy to be back. Did you miss me? Don't answer that. I missed you. We went to Mexico for 4 days. Yeah, Mexico. Like O.J. Simpson 31 years ago, I headed to Mexico, but unlike O.J., I made it to Mexico. But Mexico was really good. We went to an all-inclusive resort, we being myself, my wife, our 2 kids, her parents, and her sister. The resort was great. All you can eat, all you can drink, lots of activities for the kids. And interestingly, there were a lot of Orioles fans at this resort. I'm not sure what to make of that, but on day 1 of the trip, wore an Orioles t-shirt, a t-shirt of the great Darren O'Day from his time as an Orioles reliever. I, at the airport on the way to Mexico, got a compliment about the shirt, and I, in Mexico, got 2 compliments about the shirt. Major Orioles representation in Mexico. I don't know why that was the case, but that was the case. But yes, good to be back, and we have a lot to discuss. Hello and welcome to this Wednesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. What'll happen first? The Commanders and receiver Terry McLaurin agreeing on a contract extension, or the D.C. Council voting on the deal between the Commanders and D.C. for a stadium on the RFK Stadium site. Monday afternoon, we had ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show saying, quote, "There's no update on the Terry McLaurin situation, and that's the problem. They have not made any progress," end quote. And then Monday evening, we reportedly had the Josh Harris Group hosting members of the D.C. Council at Cafe Milano in Georgetown. Commanders ownership taking members of the D.C. Council to a swank hoity-toity restaurant in Washington, D.C. Well, while we wait on the Commanders and Terry McLaurin agreeing on a contract extension, and while we wait on the D.C. Council to vote on the deal for a Commander Stadium on the RFK Stadium site, how about some actual football conversation regarding our team? Next segment, I'll speak with Joe Pisapia. He is a podcast host for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. He is the author of the 2025 Fantasy Football Black Book, and he has rated the Commanders as having an elite ecosystem, though in this case, the E.C.O. in ecosystem serve as an acronym. Expected Collective Offensive System. E.C.O. system. Expected Collective Offensive System. Joe will tell us about his methodology and why and how the Commanders rate so well in it. He'll also discuss quarterback Jaden Daniels, receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., tight end Zach Ertz, and more. Also on the show, I'll talk Capitals, Wizards, Nationals, and Orioles. This is a loaded show, my friends. Both NHL free agency and NBA free agency have begun. I'll discuss the very latest with the Caps and Wizards. Are the Caps about to make a splash signing? They on Tuesday did lose multiple free agents, but also announced a major re-signing. No game for the Nats on Tuesday evening. Their game would have a 3-game series against the Detroit Tigers at Nationals Park was rained out. But we have a lot to get to with the Nats off them winning 2 out of 3 games at the Los Angeles Angels over the weekend, including left fielder James Wood making franchise history by drawing 4 intentional walks in one game. Also, the Nats finally have a jersey patch sponsor, but this comes off a big-time indictment of the lack of spending by the Lerner ownership group. I'll explain. The O's, they on Tuesday night lost at the Texas Rangers at 10-2, as we in recent days have had more bad injury news for the injury-ravaged O's. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Elliot on the complicated legacy of former Redskins limited partner Fred Smith, who on June 21st died at the age of 80. Fred Smith was the chairman, president, and chief executive officer of FedEx. He founded FedEx in 1971. We on episode 1102 of this podcast talk Fred Smith with Michael Phillips, founding editor of the Richmonder. Michael covered the Redskins / Washington football team / Commanders for years for the Richmond Times-Dispatch. And on episode 1103 of this podcast, read some rather harsh emails on Fred Smith from people angry at him for the role that he played in the retirement of the name Redskins. In fact, this episode of the podcast is for Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, 5 years to the day of Fred Smith's company, FedEx, putting out the unforgettable statement Thursday evening, July 2nd, 2020, quote, "We have communicated to the team at Washington our request that they change the team name," end quote. Well, in the interest of balance and equal time, we have this email from Elliot. Writes Elliot, "Dear Al, as a fan who weathered the Snyder era, 30 years of subpar football, toxic culture, and perennial PR disasters, it's time to clear the air permeating from many of the emails sent to you on Fred Smith. Yes, FedEx founder and former minority owner Fred Smith did help accelerate the shift away from the Redskins name. In 2020, amid mounting pressure after George Floyd's death, FedEx, which held stadium naming rights, publicly urged the name change. At the same time, minority owners, including Smith, began divesting, citing frustration with Dan Snyder. But attributing the entire rebrand to Smith is misleading. He didn't pull the trigger, he nudged it. He did so within a tidal wave. Shareholder boycotts from FedEx, Nike, and PepsiCo, 87 investor letters, sponsors yanking merchandise, and local governments threatening stadium financing, an industry-wide reckoning. The team's July 2020 announcement to retire the name, then the 2022 rebrand to Commanders, came amid overwhelming corporate and social momentum. It was this groundswell, not any one person, that forced Snyder's hand. Even behind the scenes, Smith's minority stake helped catalyze change. As John Kine reported, Smith, alongside Dwight Schar and Bob Rothman, pressured Snyder and hired advisors to explore selling the limited partners' combined 40% share, leveraging internal dissent, sponsor boycotts, and negative press into real pressure on Snyder's control. Snyder's departure was not a solitary event. It was the result of mounting scandals, harassment settlements, toxic workplace allegations, financial mismanagement, fan lawsuits, sponsor exodus, and pressure from his minority partners. Let's be crystal clear. Fred Smith didn't mastermind the change, but he was a key ally in a collective effort that pushed Snyder out. And for those of us who stuck it through Snyder's worst, we know how bleak and toxic it got. Any talent we haplessly acquired was destined for ruin. The Commander's name may not be perfect, but it's growing on me. Call it a compromise, call it progress. I'll take this name and a new owner over the old name and Snyder's toxic legacy any day, and twice on Sundays. For 30 years I stayed, and thanks to that mass effort, FedEx, minority owners, sponsors, fans, I'm finally excited again. Hail to the Commanders, and R.I.P. Mr. Smith. Well, thank you for the email, Elliot. Lots of good points in that email. Fred Smith certainly is not solely responsible for the retirement of the name Redskins. And there's no doubt he emerged as a major force in the ouster of Dan Snyder as lead owner of the team. And, if you are against the name Redskins, then you're not mad at Fred Smith at all for what he did. You perhaps believe that he did the team a favor. And actually, even if you are for the name Redskins, you could argue that he did the team a favor because of the things that Elliot wrote about in his email. And also because of this, the retirement of the name Redskins caused Dan Snyder to be checked out, and perhaps was the nudge for him to agree to sell the team once the NFL and its other owners truly wanted him out. Personally, I don't hate Fred Smith. I have a lot of respect for a lot of what he did in his life. Massive success in business, served in the Marines, was very charitable. My problem with Fred Smith is that I don't for a second believe that he all of a sudden found religion on the name. That he for years made millions of dollars off the name, then George Floyd died, and then Fred Smith all of a sudden realized that the name was wrong and needed to change. Fred Smith was furious at Dan Snyder, understandably so, and wanted revenge, and exacted that revenge by going scorched earth. Smith burned the house down. He took advantage of the social and political climate in the summer of 2020, put out this virtue signaling statement. That's what it was. That was a virtue signaling statement. And Smith struck the ultimate blow to Dan Snyder. What Fred Smith did worked. I give him full credit in that regard. What he did worked to perfection from his standpoint. But what he did was harsh and caused severe damage to the franchise and fan base, and I don't believe that he had to do what he did, and I do believe that there's a lack of authenticity to what he did. He did not put out that statement because of some noble realization about the name being wrong. He put out that statement to screw Dan Snyder, okay? And again, what Fred Smith did worked. Now, maybe if he hadn't done what he did, the name still would have changed. That is possible. But that statement was huge. There was no overstating the impact of that statement. Nothing for the team has been the same since that statement came out 5 years ago today. Half a decade ago today. Hey, the NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers, continues to do great work. Just recently, an $8 million jury verdict in Baltimore City Circuit Court in a case in which the NACE Law Group represented the family of a 42-year-old man who died after a simple procedure. Lead attorney Chris Nace is a big Commanders fan, a big supporter of this podcast, and his firm wins trials. If you have a case, contact the NACE Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the NACE Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The NACE Law Group is tremendous. It is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. Lead attorney Chris Nace is an experienced trial attorney who is not afraid to take cases to trials, and that's because the NACE Law Group wins trials. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the NACE Law Group and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the NACE Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the NACE Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The NACE Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. Hey, if you are listening to this podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can rate the podcast with a star rating. 5-star ratings are greatly appreciated. They help us out a lot. Thank you for doing them. We on episode 1086 of this podcast talked about the Commanders' offensive coaching staff continuity, which is part of this great ecosystem that the team has created for quarterback Jayden Daniels. Well, our next guest has labeled the Commanders as having an elite ecosystem. I am pleased to welcome to the Al Galdi podcast podcast, Joe Pisapia. He is a podcast host for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. He is the author of the 2025 Fantasy Football Black Book, which you can buy at Amazon.com. This is a must-read if you play fantasy football, specific draft strategies, more dynasty and rookie draft content than any other guide, sleepers, busts, and breakouts for the 2025 season. Also, the Black Book digital cheat sheets get updated all the way to the last fantasy football draft weekend. And for our purposes, Joe, in his 2025 Fantasy Football Black Book, has labeled the Commanders as having an elite ecosystem. But in this case, the E, C, and O of ecosystem stand for something: expected collective offensive system. E.C.O system. Expected collective offensive system. And Joe has the Commanders as being elite with their expected collective offensive system. You can follow Joe on X at Joe Pisapia17, and Pisapia is spelled Pisapia. Hey, Joe, how are you?
It's great to talk to you, Al. I appreciate you having me on the show and plugging the book. That's very kind of you. And yeah, I think you should be excited about the Commanders. I was cautiously optimistic last year, and they certainly blew any expectations I had out of the water. Jaden Daniels was my number one QB on the board as a rookie coming in that class. I had him above Caleb Williams. I had him above Drake May. And you know what? It was very nice to see him perform up to those expectations and actually even exceed those expectations as well.
He absolutely did. So the Commanders have an elite ecosystem, E.C.O system, expected collective offensive system. Explain what that is, if you would.
So for years now, the Black Book is based in something called relative position value, which is understanding the value of players at their position relative to their peers. So there's value-based drafting systems, but a lot of them are flawed because they take too much into account the entire position as a whole, as opposed to, hey, most people are going to have an RB1, most people can have an RB2. How much better is this guy as an RB1? And thinking about your roster spots as actual positions, really, and what you're trying to accumulate. And if I can consistently outperform you in as many draft spots as I can in my lineup, in my roster, then I'm probably going to win more often than not in fantasy football. And then I wanted to take things further and create something last year called the ecosystem, which is, we all have this thing where we say, you know what, it's probably good to draft good players on good teams. And it seems like such a simplistic idea, and trying to understand and quantify that, I think, is really important, because what you're trying to do is look at not just the talent that's in an offense, right? But also looking at what that offense is really made of, the consistency of that offense, the quarterback, the head coach, the offensive line, the skill set, position players, the continuity between all of them. And when you start to grade them out, you start to get a good picture of what some of these situations look like. And the Commanders happen to have a pretty good one. They improved the offensive line year over year. They did have some injuries towards the end of the last season, but they have the quarterback. I believe in the head coach. And when you see head coaches like Dan Quinn, who have a lot of talent, get that second chance, usually it's that second chance around where coaches really blossom. Like, you see Andy Reid, we take for granted that he never won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, right? He goes to the Chiefs and he has great success. Bill Belichick was head coach of the Browns, right? You can look at it around when good coaches get that second opportunity like Dan Quinn, usually good things happen. And I think collectively what you're trying to do in fantasy is target as much as you can these good offensive ecosystems that are going to score points, that are going to be consistent. And it's not that bad, players on bad teams can't be good and useful. They can, but it's far more advantageous for you to invest in the ones that on a weekly basis are going to deliver, instead of trying to rely on trying to squeeze blood out of a stone through some of these mediocre or even bad ones.
The Commanders, per your methodology, are one of 9 NFL teams, each with an elite ecosystem. The other 8 teams, the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Los Angeles Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Kansas City Chiefs, the San Francisco 49ers, the Buffalo Bills, and the Detroit Lions. Your ecosystem evaluations for teams are comprised of 4 categories: quarterback, head coach, offensive line, and skill position players. You grade each team in each category on a scale of 1 to 5. You gave the Commanders a 5 for quarterback and 4s for head coach, offensive line, and skill position players. What was your thinking in grading the Commanders as having an elite ecosystem?
Well, like I said, I think that they did a good job with that offensive line year over year, just building some, when you get in Laramie Tunsil, right, a guy who's a leader like that. I was shocked that the Texans went that direction direction, especially since their offensive line already was poor. So bringing him in, I think, is huge, not just because of the player he is, but also because of what he offers in terms of leadership. This guy's a captain. Like, he's that kind of a guy in the locker room. So that's huge. And it's a veteran that can really teach a lot of the other guys. So you're bringing in him. That's huge, right? You have already a solid base there where you know the relationship with Zach Ertz and Daniels was good last year. You have some depth at the running back position now. From a fantasy perspective, Brian Robinson's a low-end RB2 because he cedes so much of the passing volume to Austin Eckler, and Austin Eckler is going to cede so much of the touchdown equity to Brian Robinson. So it kind of hurts both their fantasy value, but in terms of looking at them as values on the board, they can be contributors on your fantasy team, especially in PPR leagues for Eckler. And then Terry McLaurin, I think, has always been one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL for the last couple of years. He has played with more bad quarterback play than most receivers will ever play in a lifetime. And he continues to put up 1,000-yard seasons. I remember last year, my favorite bet on the board was to go over the yardage total for Terry McLaurin because I think it was set at 923 or something, or it might have even been 915 and a half. It was ludicrous because Jaden Daniels is very talented. McLaurin was clearly the guy. And, of course, he went over 1,000 yards yet again. Every single year he does it. Now, I think last year you don't want to upbid him too much, Terry McLaurin, in what he's going to do this season. But you can't take away the fact that with a bunch of, basically no-name guys, the Noah Browns of the world and, some other pieces that were there last season, Jaden Daniels did an incredible job of facilitating the football. And when you have a quarterback and a head coach and offensive line, and you have a number one wide receiver like McLaurin, you can hope that bringing in a Deebo Samuel, if he's healthy, if he's motivated, right? How he comes into camp is very important. What's his weight this year? He was not in shape last year. That led to some more injuries and some more issues. He's had injuries in the past. Is he focused or is he a player on the decline? If he is Deebo Samuel of 2 years ago, he gives you a weapon that you can use out of the backfield, you can use as a wide receiver, and that gives you another wrinkle in this offense that a lot of offenses can't offer. So, again, all of those things together really prove to me that the Commanders are in a spot where they are one of the better offenses, and people need to understand right away that, just because it happened last year and it was new doesn't mean that trend isn't going to continue to point up for Washington.
You in the Black Book have Jaden Daniels as your QB3, Lamar Jackson number 1, Josh Allen number 2, Daniels 3. What went into your thought process in having Daniels ranked that high?
Well, Daniels over Hurts because I think Daniels' ability to improve on what he did last year, number 1, and number 2, the fact that I think he's just a better pure passer than Jalen Hurts anyway. Just from a prospect standpoint, coming out of the draft, I thought he was. But you saw it right away. Whereas Jalen Hurts at times sometimes can still struggle at certain moments. Now, Jalen Hurts' rushing equity, his rushing touchdowns brings so much in fantasy points, right? So you can't deny it. He's still a great investment. But there is potentially another gear in Jaden Daniels we haven't even seen yet. He was a rookie last year and absolutely just took the league by storm with his ability to not only rush the football, but also throw for touchdowns, throw in big spots. And I think what was so impressive, too, is as the games got more important, as you got into the playoffs, those road victories, going into Tampa, going into Detroit, going into those environments and winning games was incredible to watch. So he should have a lot of confidence. Now, that being said, sophomore slumps do happen. You have to recognize that. You saw it happen to C.J. Stroud year over year. But the big difference there is there were massive issues with the offensive line going into last year for the Texans. They didn't address them. It hurt them. And then on top of which, obviously, the injuries to guys like Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, really kind of pulled things down. But Jaden Daniels, I think year over year, this roster around him got stronger, not weaker. So I think there's every reason to believe not only can he repeat that, but maybe he's even got another gear we haven't seen. So I would take him over Hurts. Again, that's splitting hairs. They're both very good, especially in super flex formats. But Jaden Daniels, to me, I think is poised to not only, meet what he had last year. There could be another opportunity for him to even go past it. I think the 25 touchdowns, could he push to 30 this year? I think he could.
Much more with Joe Pisapia in moments. I recently bought a car, had a great experience buying that new car, a silver 2025 Toyota Corolla Cross, and I had that experience at Toyota Fitzgerald in Gaithersburg, Maryland, and thanks to the guy who sold me the car, vehicle consultant Anthony Rosario. Anthony's a great guy. He's a big sports fan, lifelong Redskins / Washington football team / Commanders fan. He has a great demeanor about him, very informed, but no pressure, no hassle, no games. Usually when you buy a car, you can't help but feel that you got conned in some way, right? I was worried about having that feeling, but I in no way had that feeling. Anthony's a straight shooter. The process was smooth and painless and quick. I had my 4-year-old daughter with me. I did not have 8 hours to spend at the dealership, and I did not have to spend 8 hours at the dealership. We closed the deal in right around 2 hours. And here's something special. Go to Toyota, Fitzgerald, and Gaithersburg. Ask for Anthony Rosario and immediately mention that Al Galdi sent you. You do that, you get $100 off your car purchase. Just like that, you save $100. If you need a new car, if you're thinking about getting a new car and you want an honest, no gimmicks, feel-good experience, go to Toyota, Fitzgerald, and Gaithersburg. Ask for Anthony Rosario and right away mention that Al Galdi sent you. You do that, you get $100 off your car purchase. We're talking Commanders with Joe Pisapia. He is a podcast host for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. He is the author of the 2025 Fantasy Football Black Book, which you can buy at Amazon.com. If you're ranking NFL quarterbacks based on their running, what do you rank Jayden Daniels?
Well, look, you're always going to have Lamar. To me, is always going to be my 1-1 there. I think he's probably 3 there with Jalen Hurts, because Hurts is still a little bit more apt to want to, take off with his legs because he has to, just built in the way the offense is. And especially if Saquon Barkley pulls back, I would still probably value Hurts just as a pure rusher more, because I think frame-wise, too, what you want is Daniels to continue to grow in the pocket, not have to necessarily roll out as much, not have to escape the pocket as much and make plays with his legs. You want to keep him upright, right? So that could dial back a little bit. However, I think when you also add in the fact that Jalen Hurts this year playing with Saquon Barkley, who had over 400 touches last year, that's not a kind number historically. You saw what happened to Christian McCaffrey last year. We can go down the list. Years and years of this data exists where if there's more pressure on this offense, Jalen Hurts might have to run a lot more than he did last season. You might see him push out more. But I think what you're looking for is last year is a pretty strong baseline. If Daniels just repeats what he did last year, he's a top 3 quarterback in fantasy. If he builds on it, he could even challenge for that number 1 spot. I don't know if they're going to be in that position, especially because I think the Ravens are really poised to be the team in the AFC this year. But I think it's still looking at, maybe just a little bit more maturity from Daniels might bring that number down just a tad. And maybe the necessity of the Eagles not having Saquon Barkley for all 17 games could push Hurts back up a little bit. That yin and yang is just something to consider when you're trying to rank them that way.
The QB1 WR1 combos in the NFC East. The Commanders, Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. The Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. The Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. The New York Giants, Russell Wilson and Malik Neighbors. What is the best QB1 WR1 combo in the NFC East?
That's an interesting one. I think Dak is going to bounce back. We actually just had this conversation on the podcast. I do see a bounce back for Dak. I think people have gotten way too low on him. CD is absolutely spectacular. My question is, do they have enough run game where they don't become a very one-dimensional offense? Does that hurt them, or does it just not matter because they just have to throw the football so much? It's not Hurts and A.J. Brown for me. I think in terms of the consistency that you're getting, you have to probably say the consistency is Daniels and McLaurin, that you say, from a draft capital standpoint, from a weekly floor standpoint, even from a ceiling standpoint, maybe Dak and CD have the higher ceiling. I don't trust Russell Wilson, and eventually whenever the pivot goes to Jackson Dart, there's going to be rookie growing pains there, as much as I love Malik Neighbors. But I think it's a great point that you are looking at probably the best floor combination of McLaurin and Daniels right now, because the targets are going to go to him. He's the clear number 1. The number 2 is, again, still in question, Debo and what else they have in that offense there, who emerges. Zach Ertz was a comfortable target for him last year, but sometimes we see the evolution of quarterbacks. In year 1 of rookie seasons, they like to dump off a lot to the tight ends. They don't always want to, stretch the field too much, but with confidence, sometimes that goes away a little bit. So I would say probably your weekly floor combination with ceiling is the Commanders. But the big ceiling has to still sit with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb because, frankly, you look at the Cowboys' backfield and it just might be something that they have no choice but to air it out every single week. And that's great for fantasy owners. It might drive some Cowboy fans a little crazy, but, I think we can all live with that. Drive the Cowboys fans crazy. I think we could sleep at night with that.
We absolutely can. You mentioned Commanders receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. Are you a believer in him this coming season having a bounce-back season?
Preseason football doesn't mean much except for the guys that it means everything for. I always say this, right? So for me, a guy like Deebo is something that means a lot. It means what's his conditioning look like? How's he look? How is he being used in this offense? Of all the guys on this roster, he is the one to me that it's the most crucial to watch what he does in the preseason, the usage, where they have him lining up, what sort of packages they want to run with him in it. I think that's very crucial because we've seen some significant drop off in the last couple of years from some fantasy stalwart wide receivers, especially last year, right? Between Hopkins and Amari Cooper, and we can, Deontay Johnson, we can go on and on about all the wide receivers that got traded last year. And that was a big giant red flag and they all fell off the universe, right? And Deebo Samuel was a piece that was expendable for the 49ers. He is not as old as some of those other guys, but he does have some injury history and some tread on those tires. So he is one where I think motivation and conditioning really mean a lot. So how he's working out in camp, how he's getting along with everybody, how he picks up the playbook is very important. So that's one of those things that I am going to wait and see. And right now I kind of have him as a placeholder wide receiver 3-ish kind of guy. I think I'd rather have him as a flex play than a wide receiver 3, to be honest with you. In deeper leagues, maybe you can live with him as a 3, but I think the ideal spot is to have him as a flex guy for bye weeks and to play that flex spot because he does have talent. There's no doubt about that. How he gets used in the offense is a question, and he is not the go-to target, but then again, he wasn't the same thing in San Francisco either. He wasn't the go-to guy, and he was able to feed off the system. Can this system support more than just Terry McLaurin as a big fantasy entity? That's a question we need addressed. I'm cautiously optimistic. However, I'm going to be watching very carefully in August to see what happens. And if things look good and things are trending the right direction there, then I would be comfortable bumping them up maybe to that 25 to 30 wide receiver range as opposed to, where we are, which is more like wide receiver 38, 39.
The Commanders last season got surprising durability and production from tight end Zach Ertz. He is going into his age 35 season. Are you buying him doing well for the team for a second consecutive season?
My doubts come at the age of Ertz. He's a really good player. I think that season really caught a lot of us off guard. I mean, probably everybody in the NFL. I think if you ask people, was Zach Ertz done after his final year in Arizona? We were probably, you know what? 27 receptions and 187 yards, he's probably done, right? And then he comes out with a decent 66 catch season with 650 yards, but the 7 touchdowns are really what made that season. If you score a touchdown, you're a tight end one that week. That's pretty much how fantasy goes. Ben Sinnott, I think, is a really interesting prospect. If Ertz should miss significant time, he is 34 years old, then maybe Sinnott can start to emerge a little bit and start to prove the draft stock that he had. But I'll put you this way. Zach Ertz is not the guy that I'm targeting at tight end in fantasy this year. If I miss out on a lot of the guys that I want, okay, fine, then I'll take some shots there at the end on the tight end position. And maybe Ertz is a guy that you could say in a deeper league, all right, let me take a shot on him as my backup guy, as my second tight end, and instead look to, the Tyler Warrens of the world and hoping that one guy like that or Colson Loveland emerge, or Kyle Pitts finally delivers now that we've got, some better offense potentially moving in the right direction there in Atlanta. I think the either get it early at tight end or let it go is probably the best strategy. So Ertz is one of those guys that you can plug and play matchups, but at the same time, I think you still want to pair him with someone who's got way more upside and way more youth. So Loveland, Pitts, Warren, who are all being drafted right outside of that tight end 1 territory, I think that's much better situation for fantasy.
I hear you. Joe, nice talking with you. Washington had not been elite at much of anything in a long time. So nice to hear about the Commanders having an elite ecosystem.
Thanks for having me, Al. I appreciate it quite a bit. Fun talking Commanders. I'm excited about the Commanders, and I think that's great because everybody in the fantasy football community for years was saying, oh, the Commanders. Not anymore. That is over, my friends. It's time to be excited.
We went through many, many years with many, many problems, so it's good to have this genuine excitement. Joe Pisapia, podcast host for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, author of the 2025 Fantasy Football Black Book, which you can buy at Amazon.com. Joe, thanks. All the best.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, if you are planning a party, a family reunion, a wedding, a corporate gathering, and aren't sure where to start or what to do, no worries, no stress. Just visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business, and it specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your needs and exceeding your expectations. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Well, free agency in the NHL's 2025 offseason started on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. The Capitals, they in recent years have had some really good offseasons and successfully pulling off their retool. So to me, there's a big-time benefit of the doubt that Caps president of hockey operations, Brian McClellan, and Caps senior vice president and general manager, Chris Patrick, deserve. Now, no major splash moves by the Caps so far this offseason in terms of acquisitions, but could a major splash be coming? The best unrestricted free agent forward this offseason is Winnipeg Jets winger Nikolai Ehlers, and the Caps are coming up regarding Ehlers. Winnipeg Jets insider Murat Atesh of The Athletic, he in a post on X on Monday evening wrote, quote, Nikolai Ehlers, there's been a lot of UFA smoke around Carolina. I'm told they'd be interested. Washington, too. I also view NYR as a real possibility with some cap clearance required. Might add cap-strapped TB as a long shot, end quote. ESPN NHL insider Emily Kaplan, she in a post on X on Tuesday afternoon wrote, quote, as free agency carries on, all eyes on Nikolai Ehlers, believe the Canes, Capitals, and Lightning are among the teams in on him. He's doing his due diligence today. End quote. Nikolai Ehlers, he this past regular season had 63 points in just 69 games, 24 goals, and 39 assists. Meantime, the Caps on Tuesday did announce a major re-signing. The Caps on Tuesday afternoon announced having re-signed defenseman Martin Fehervary to a 7-year, $42 million contract extension that'll begin with the 2026-2027 season, his age 27 season. Fehervary had been a restricted free agent this offseason, but the Caps quickly locked him up. He's coming off a breakout season. Fehervary for the Caps in the 2024-2025 regular season played in 81 of the team's 82 games and had the following rankings on the team. Number 1 among all qualified Caps players in shorthanded ice time per game at 3 minutes 2 seconds. Number 2 on the Caps in block shots at 150. Number 3 on the Caps in hits at 139. Number 5 on the Caps in ice time per game at exactly 19 minutes. And number 6 on the Caps in plus minus at plus 18. Also, Fehervary for the 2024-2025 regular season was number 4 in the NHL in total shorthanded ice time at 245 minutes, 35 seconds. The Caps this past postseason very much missed Martin Fehervary. This past postseason did not play at all. He on April 21st underwent surgery to repair a right knee meniscus injury that he suffered in the Caps' 3-1 win at the New York Islanders on April 15th. The Caps this past postseason beat the Montreal Canadiens in 5 games in the first round, but then lost to the Carolina Hurricanes in 5 games in the second round. And you perhaps recall the problems that the Caps had on the penalty kill this past postseason. Yeah, having Fehervary would have helped. Martin Fehervary is another product of good drafting and good player development by the Caps. They took him in the second round of the 2018 NHL Draft. Now, speaking of defensemen and drafting and player development, we also have had this in recent days. The Caps non-tendering defenseman Alexander Alexeyev. So the Caps, this past Saturday afternoon, what was day 2 of the 2025 NHL Draft, announced having traded defenseman Chase Priskie and a 4th-round pick in the 2025 NHL Draft to the Minnesota Wild for defenseman Declan Chisholm and a 6th-round pick in the 2025 NHL Draft. And the Caps on Monday evening announced having signed Chisholm to a 2-year, $3.2 million contract. Chisholm had been set to be a restricted free agent this offseason. He's entering his age 26 season off having been taken by the Winnipeg Jets in the 5th round of the 2018 NHL Draft. He, for the Wild in the 2024-2025 regular season, played in 66 games. In case you're curious about Chase Priskie, he's going into his age 29 season and has played for the Caps' AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears, over the previous 2 seasons with 0 regular season games for the Caps at the NHL level. So he's a prospect nearing 30. But the Caps traded for a defenseman in Declan Chisholm, and then Chris Patrick in a post-NHL draft press conference this past Saturday afternoon indicated that the Caps might non-tender Alexander Alexeyev, and sure enough, they did non-tender Alexeyev. The Caps this past Monday afternoon announced having extended a qualifying offer to forward Hendrix Lapierre and having not tendered qualifying offers to 3 players, including Alexander Alexeyev. The Caps took Alexeyev with the number 31 overall pick in the 2018 NHL Draft, but this is a draft choice that did not work out for the Caps. Alexeyev in the 2024-2025 regular season played in just 8 games for the Caps. He did appear in all 10 of the Caps games in the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs, but that was due to Martin Fehervary being done for the season due to his right knee meniscus injury. Alexeyev is entering his age 26 season. He did just have a legal situation. Who knows how much of a role this played in the Caps non-tendering him, but he was charged with public intoxication, a Class 4 misdemeanor following a fight in Arlington, Virginia in the early morning hours of May 17th. He appeared in court on June 12th, was issued a $91 fine with the potential for the charge to be dismissed if he maintains good behavior until October 21st. Here was Chris Patrick this past Saturday afternoon on Alexander Alexeyev.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Alex, he's a young guy that didn't get to play a bunch of games this year. I think it's important for him to get an opportunity at the NHL level, if that's with us or if that's with somebody else. So, we're going to be as helpful as we can to him to get him the best opportunity to play in the NHL next year.
Yeah, very prophetic comments right there. We on Tuesday had a bunch of free agent defections for the Caps. Caps unrestricted free agent winger Andrew Mangiapane. He is signed with the Edmonton Oilers. They, late night on Tuesday night, announced having signed him to a 2-year contract. Caps unrestricted free agent winger Taylor Radish. He reportedly has agreed on a deal with the New York Rangers. Caps unrestricted free agent center Lars Eller is signed with the Ottawa Senators. They on Tuesday afternoon announced having signed him to a 1-year contract. Caps unrestricted free agent defenseman Ethan Bear is signed with the New York Islanders. They announced the move on Tuesday evening. He got a 1-year, 2-way NHL/AHL contract. So for the Caps, their major unrestricted free agents this offseason now are winger Anthony Beauvillier, defenseman Alexander Alexeyev, and goaltender Hunter Shepard. The Caps' lone remaining major restricted free agent is forward Hendrix Lapierre. Also with the Caps in recent days has been another trade for a pending unrestricted free agent who the Caps have signed. The Caps this past Thursday night announced having traded a second-round pick in the 2026 NHL Draft and a sixth-round pick in the 2027 NHL Draft to the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers for forward Justin Sourdif. And the Caps on Saturday morning announced having signed Sourdif to a 2-year, $1.65 million contract. Sourdif had been set to be a restricted free agent this offseason. His entering his age 23 season was taken by the Panthers in the third round of the 2020 NHL Draft. He has played in just 4 NHL regular season games, including just one game during the 2024-2025 regular season. So this clearly is an upside play by the Caps, but Sourdif for the Panthers AHL affiliate, the Charlotte Checkers, in their 2024-2025 regular season had 16 goals and 18 assists over 43 games. Here was Chris Patrick this past Saturday afternoon on Justin Sourdif, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange with Caps insider Tarek El-Bashir of Monumental Sports Network.
He's a guy we've liked for a few years. We've tried to get him a couple times from Florida. We see a guy that's competitive, smart, can play wing and center, plays both special teams at the AHL level. I think in Florida it was a situation where just he was getting boxed out a little bit, and they had a bunch of people calling on him, and so it got to be a competitive situation. So, kind of like I said at the trade deadline, we had to decide: do we want the guy and are willing to pay up for it, or do we want to take a back seat? And for us, it felt like these are the kind of deals that we've had success with in the past with a guy like Rasmus Sandin, where you use a first to get him. Now, obviously, he was more established in the NHL, but we view it as a similar type deal where we're getting a young guy that might be in our organization for a lot of years, and we think it'd be really key contributor to our team going forward, kind of that next wave of younger players. So, I think as far as his role with us, it's going to be he gives Carbs options. He can try him at the wing, he can try him at center, but I think it'll be he's going to have a good chance here to prove that he's a good NHL player.
You mentioned that there was some competition to get his services. I mean, did a bunch of teams start to jump in there? He did a good Calder Cup run, right? Yeah.
I mean, he's been really good in the AHL for the last 3 years. There's definitely other teams. I think it was down to us and one other team at the end, and they had a higher second than we did, which is why we had to go to the sixth. And so it's that's the way it goes sometimes.
So you take a step back, Declan Chisholm entering his age 26 season, Justin Sourdif entering his age 23 season. These acquisitions continue the Caps' retool, the team getting younger while still contending. And I've mentioned the 2025 NHL Draft. The Caps are getting strong reviews for what they did in this draft. The Caps this past Friday night took winger Lynden Lakovic with the number 27 overall pick in the 2025 NHL Draft. And the Caps this past Saturday afternoon took forward Milton Gastrin with the number 37 overall pick in the 2025 NHL Draft. Lynden Lakovic is just 18. He's listed as being 6'4" and 200 pounds. He's from British Columbia, Canada. He, among players in the 2025 NHL Draft, was ranked number 14 among all North American skaters by NHL Central Scouting. Lakovic spent the 2024-2025 season with the Moose Jaw Warriors of the Western Hockey League. He and the Warriors' 2024-2025 regular season played in just 47 games, but had 27 goals and 31 assists. Meantime, Milton Gastrin is just 18. He's listed as being 6'1" and 194 pounds, is from Sweden. He, among players in the 2025 NHL Draft, was ranked number 3 among all international skaters by NHL Central Scouting. Rachel Dory, co-host of the Staff and Graph podcast, she in an ESPN.com piece that came out on Sunday morning, June 29th, graded each NHL team for what it did in the 2025 NHL Draft. She gave the Caps a B+. Quote, "The Capitals extracted excellent value with their first 2 picks in the draft, and both players are solid bets to become middle six contributors at the NHL level. Lynden Lakovic has the potential to be a big dual-threat producer and would be even more exciting if he learns to use his 6'4" frame to physically impose himself on opponents. The ceiling is high for Lakovic, and getting a top 15 player at number 27 is good work. Milton Gastrin is one of the more complete players in the draft and shouldn't be far off from the NHL. He's got third-line center written all over him and could provide more offense than most think." End quote. I was happy to read that, and Lynden Lakovic and Milton Gastrin are participating in the Caps 2025 development camp, which started on Tuesday and runs through this Saturday. Is happening at MedStar Capital's Iceplex in Arlington, Virginia.
If you're putting in the work, your food should too. Thrive Market is a no-junk online grocery store that helps you clean up your pantry, cutting over 1,000 plus shady ingredients from the stuff you eat every day. From high-protein snacks and anti-inflammatory pantry staples to performance supplements and recovery blends. You'll find high-quality food that actually lines up with how you want to eat. Check it out at thrivemarket.com/podcast to get 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. Fuel better without the hassle.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Free agency in the NBA's 2025 offseason got going on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. That was when each NBA team could begin negotiating with external free agents, though official signings of external unrestricted free agents can't happen until this Sunday, July 6th at 12:01 p.m. Eastern. Monday, June 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern to Sunday, July 6th at 12:01 p.m. Eastern is what is known as the NBA's moratorium period. When it comes to our rebuilding and tanking Wizards, who have had a moratorium on winning for a long time here. They this offseason have just one notable unrestricted free agent, Malcolm Brogdon, and have just one notable restricted free agent, Tristan Vukcevic. Chris Middleton was to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason, but we on June 23rd had reports that Middleton, not surprisingly, was exercising his $33.3 million player option for the 2025-2026 season. The most recent episode of this podcast prior to this one, prior to my vacation, was episode 1103, which came out early Thursday morning, June 26th, off the Wizards on Wednesday night, June 25th, taking Trey Johnson out of the University of Texas with the number 6 overall pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, and off a reported trade that netted the Wizards, among other assets, Will Riley, who the Utah Jazz took out of the University of Illinois with the number 21 overall pick in the 2025 NBA Draft. The Wizards, early Thursday morning, June 26th, announced having acquired the draft rights to Will Riley, and the Wizards in the trade also got the number 43 overall pick in the 2025 NBA Draft and reportedly got second-round picks in the 2031 and 2032 NBA drafts. And the Wizards on Thursday night took Jamir Watkins out of Florida State with that number 43 overall pick in the 2025 NBA Draft. Now, whereas Trey Johnson and Will Riley each played college basketball for just one season, Jamir Watkins played college basketball for 5 seasons. So he played for VCU for the 2020, 2021, and 2022, 2023 seasons, and played for FSU for the 2023, 2024, and 2024, 2025 seasons. So he missed all of the 2021-2022 season due to a torn right ACL that he suffered in September 2021. Watkins for the 2024-2025 season was number 4 among all qualified players in the ACC in points per game at 18.4. Yet the 2025 NBA Draft Combine in Chicago this past May had the following measurements. Height without shoes is 6'5", wingspan of 6'11" and a quarter of an inch, so he's long, a vertical leap of 37 inches. And then the Wizards Wizards this past Saturday night announced having traded Colby Jones to the NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder for Dylan Jones and a second-round pick in the 2029 NBA Draft. This appears to have been a salary dump by the Thunder. The Wizards actually took Dylan Jones out of Weber State with the number 26 overall pick in the 2024 NBA Draft, but they traded their numbers 26 and 51 overall picks in the 2024 NBA Draft to the New York Knicks for their number 24 overall pick in the 2024 NBA Draft. The Knicks, for the Wizards, with that number 24 overall pick in the 2024 NBA Draft, took Swiss guard Keyshawn George out of the University of Miami. Dylan Jones for the Thunder this past regular season played in 54 games, but totaled just 551 minutes. Here's my biggest takeaway with this trade. The Wizards acquiring Dylan Jones gives them a whopping 5 players who were taken in the first round of the, remember, supposedly weak 2024 NBA Draft. The 5 players: Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, A.J. Johnson, and Dylan Jones. You talk about zigging while everyone else is zagging. The Wizards have gone all in on the supposedly weak 2024 NBA Draft. As for Colby Jones, so the Wizards got him as part of their 3-team trade with the Memphis Grizzlies and Sacramento Kings this past February 6th, which was 2025 NBA trade deadline day. The Charlotte Hornets took Jones with the number 34 overall pick in the 2023 NBA Draft out of Xavier. And also with the Wizards in recent days was the team on Sunday afternoon announcing having requested waivers on Anthony Gill. He reportedly would have had a $2.5 million or $2.55 million, depending on what you go by, salary for next season guaranteed if the Wizards had not requested waivers on him by Sunday. Anthony Gill is entering his age 33 season. He had been the player with the longest tenure on the Wizards. So they, on December 1st, 2020, announced having signed him as an unrestricted free agent. He had played the 3 previous seasons in Russia. He's regarded as a really good guy in the locker room and as a very nice NBA success story. Gill went undrafted out of the University of Virginia, for which he played for the 2013-2014 through 2015-2016 seasons after transferring from the University of South Carolina, for which he played in the 2011-2012 season. Gill finished his career number 1 all-time among all qualified UVA players in career field goal percentage at .582. It is possible that the Wizards this offseason will re-sign Gill, but at least for now, he is gone. Well, the Nationals have gone from playing a game on each of 16 consecutive days to now having had 3 off days over the last 6 days. Game 1 of a 3-game series against the Detroit Tigers at Nationals Park was supposed to happen on Tuesday evening beginning at 6:45, but the game was postponed due to rain. And so the Nats and Tigers will play a day-night doubleheader on Wednesday. Game 1, Wednesday afternoon at 1:05. Trevor Williams will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2, Wednesday evening at 6:45. Mackenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. There was some Nats news on Tuesday. The Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having returned third baseman / shortstop Paul DeJong from his minor league rehab assignment and having reinstated him from the 10-day injured list, which he had been on since April 16th. This due to a fractured nose that he suffered in the Nats' 3-0 win at the Pittsburgh Pirates on April 15th. The corresponding roster move was the Nats optioning first baseman Andres Chaparro to AAA Rochester. I would not expect to see much of DeJong moving forward, with Brady House now as the Nats' number 1 third baseman and C.J. Abrams, of course, as the Nats' number 1 shortstop. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season are 35-49. This off winning 2 out of 3 games at the Los Angeles Angels over the weekend. Late night on Friday night, a 15-9 win at the Angels as the Nats scored their most runs in a regular season game since July 19th, 2021. Late night on Saturday night, an 8-2 loss at the Angels in a game in which the Nats blew a 2-1 7th-inning lead by allowing the Angels to score 6 runs in the bottom of the 7th and a run in the bottom of the 8th. But Sunday, a 7-4 11-inning win at the Angels in a wild game that included Nats manager Davey Martinez getting ejected. The game concluded a 4-5 road trip in California and a 7-19 month of June. The Nats had a really bad month of June, but they at least did end it with a series win at the Angels. Tuesday was July 1st, marking the one-year anniversary of the Nats selecting the contract of outfielder James Wood from AAA Rochester. He now has been in the majors for a full 12 months, and how about what happened with him in his final game before the anniversary? Wood in the 7-4 11-inning win at the Angels on Sunday as the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter went 1 for 2 with a single, 4 intentional walks, and a stolen base. Wood became the first player in Montreal Expos / Washington Nationals history to draw at least 4 intentional walks in a regular season game. He became the first Major League player to draw at least 4 intentional walks in a regular season game since Barry Bonds in September 2004, and Wood became the first Nats player to draw at least 3 intentional walks in a regular season game since Bryce Harper in a 4-3 13-inning loss at the Chicago Cubs on May 8th, 2016, in a game in which Harper drew an astounding 6 walks, 3 intentional walks and 3 non-intentional walks. This was part of a 4-game series in which Harper drew 13 walks, and the Cubs bench coach at the time was Davey Martinez. But James Wood has been so good. Wood, over 163 Major League regular season games, has an OPS plus of 144. That is tremendous. 100 is league average. Above 100 is good. Below 100 is bad. An OPS plus of 144 is just tremendous. This is just his age 22 season. This so far has been a very disappointing season for the Nats, no doubt, but the number one bright spot has been James Wood. He is proving to be every bit the franchise player he was acquired to be. Wood, C.J. Abrams, and starting pitcher Mackenzie Gore, 3 guys acquired in the mega trade of outfielder Juan Soto and first baseman Josh Bell to the Padres on August 2nd, 2022. It was 2022 MLB trade deadline day. And Wood, Abrams, and Gore are the 3 biggest bright spots for the Nats this season. James Wood, for the month of June, had an OPS of 896. C.J. Abrams, for the month of June, had an OPS of 873. He was excellent in the series at the Angels. Abrams, for each of the 3 games, was the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter. He, over the 3 games, went 6 for 17 with a homer, a triple, a double, and 3 singles. And the triple was huge. He, in the 7-4 11-inning win at the Angels on Sunday, in a Nats 3-run 11th, had a win-out first pitch, 2-run triple down the right field line for a 7-4 Nats lead. The Nats won 2 out of 3 games at the Angels over the weekend, despite the Nats starting pitching only being good in 1 of the 3 games, and that game was the Nats' lone loss in the series. So the 15-9 win at the Angels late night on Friday night, Jake Irvin officially allowed 9 runs, 8 earned in 4 1/3 innings. The 8-2 loss at the Angels late night on Saturday night, Michael Soroka allowed 1 run in 6 innings with 5 strikeouts versus 1 walk, and the 7-4 11-inning win at the Angels on Sunday, Mitchell Parker officially allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. And the Nats bullpen, in winning 2 out of 3 games at the Angels over the weekend, was good in games 1 and 3, but horrendous in game 2. The 15-9 win at the Angels late night on Friday night, 4 Nats relievers officially combined for 4 2/3 scoreless innings. The 8-2 loss at the Angels late night on Saturday night, 4 Nats relievers officially combined to allow 7 runs in 2 innings, but the 7-4 11-inning win at the Angels on Sunday, 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 6 innings as closer Kyle Finnegan provided maybe the single best outing by a Nats reliever this season. And I know that's not saying a ton, but Finnegan was so good, he tossed 3 scoreless and hitless innings on just 30 pitches, 20 strikes versus just 10 balls. Also, with the Nats in recent days has been big business news. The Nats and AARP. They, on Monday morning, quote, announced a multi-year agreement that makes AARP the club's inaugural jersey patch sponsor and an official community impact sponsor, end quote. The AARP logo is to appear on all Nats jerseys during exhibition seasons, regular seasons, and postseasons. And yes, this would be AARP, as in the group formerly known as the American Association of Retired Persons. The jokes do write themselves. The Nats have had all kinds of problems in drafting and player development, as we have discussed, so partnering with AARP does make some sense. But the Nats, prior to this announcement, were the only team in MLB with neither a jersey patch sponsorship nor a stadium naming rights deal. Now at least the Nats have the jersey patch sponsorship. sponsorship. Nats ownership, the Lerner family, is notorious for grinding out deals and not accepting a deal unless it meets the family's exact, precise standards/expectations. And while we can't say with certainty why the Nats have been so behind in having a jersey pad sponsorship or a stadium naming rights deal, I do think that it is not at all far-fetched to think that the primary reason has been the way of the Lerner family. And this approach, if in fact it has been the approach, has been a penny wise and a pound foolish, because the Lerner family has cost itself millions of dollars in having gone so long without a jersey pad sponsorship and a stadium naming rights deal. And how about this? The announcement of the Nats jersey patch deal with AARP coincidentally came out on the same day of the publication of a piece by Nats insider Spencer Nussbaum of the Washington Post on the Nats using a headset and virtual reality program called Win Reality, instead of having invested in a more advanced, more expensive pitching machine called TrajectArc, which has become very popular in MLB. Read the piece, quote, "The cost for TrajectArc varies based on team, league, and version, but a typical commitment is roughly $500,000, or around $15,000 per month on a 3-year contract. By comparison, Washington's player payroll is roughly $120 million for this season alone." The Nationals declined to comment when asked why they had not invested in the technology, end quote. This intel from Spencer Nussbaum, to me, was so disappointing and yet so not surprising. My biggest problem with the lack of spending of the Lerner family in recent years has been the lack of spending on infrastructure as opposed to the lack of spending on players. The Lerner family should be spending more in both areas, but if I had to pick one, I would prioritize infrastructure over players, especially infrastructure as it relates to analytics and sports science. There in MLB now is an information arms race. Every team now is smart. The smallest of edges can be the difference in making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. And for you as a team to not be doing all that you can do to gain these edges is shameful, especially when the tools to obtain these edges are a fraction of the cost of players. You know, the Nats reportedly are paying their number one DH, Josh Bell, $6 million this season. TrajectArc is a fraction of the cost of Josh Bell and his 640 OPS for this regular season. Think about the Commanders. What did they do upon taking quarterback Jaden Daniels with the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft? They immediately got the high-level virtual reality system that he had used at LSU. They spent on that key piece of infrastructure to make Daniels as good as he could be. And what'd he do? He had an all-time great rookie season. It's a real shame, not surprising, but a real shame that the MLB team of Washington, D.C. is not taking the same kind of approach.
Whenever I need to send roses that are guaranteed to make someone's day, the only place I trust is 1-800-Flowers.com. With 1-800-Flowers, my friends and family always receive stunning, high-quality bouquets that they absolutely love. Right now, when you buy a dozen multicolored roses, 1-800-Flowers will double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. To claim this special double roses offer, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/Pandora. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Pandora.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
The Orioles, for a second consecutive season, are getting hammered by injury, and nothing captures this more than what is happening for the O's at catcher. The O's over the weekend won 2 out of 3 games against the Tampa Bay Rays at Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and the O's have split the first 2 games of a 3-game series at the Texas Rangers. Monday night, a 10-6, 11-inning win at the Rangers in a game in which the O's blew a 3-0 6-inning lead and a 6-3 10th-inning lead. The O's scored 3 runs in the top of the 10th and 4 runs in the top of the 11th, but Tuesday night, a 10-2 loss at the Rangers. The O's in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 37-48. Chadwick Trump, he in the 10-6, 11-inning win at the Rangers on Monday night as the Orioles starting catcher and number 9 batter went 0 for 1 and left the game due to a lower back strain. And the O's on Tuesday afternoon announced having put Trump on the 10-day injured list due to a lower back strain, making him the 3rd Orioles catcher currently on an injured list. The O's on June 21st announced having placed catcher Adley Rutschman on the 10-day injured list, retroactive to June 20th due to a left oblique strain. And the O's on June 23rd announced having placed catcher Maverick Hanley on the 7-day concussion injured list. And the Orioles starting catcher in the 10-2 loss at the Rangers on Tuesday night got hurt. Gary Sanchez, he is the Orioles starting catcher and number 5 batter, went 1 for 3 with a 2-run homer. He has been on fire lately, but he in the top of the 9th was pinch hit for due to hurting a finger. Unreal what is happening for the O's at catcher. The O's on Tuesday night scored just 2 runs, a total just 7 hits, worked just 1 walk, and went 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position. The 7 hits were the homer and 6 singles. The O's got worked by Rangers starting pitcher Jacob deGrom. He allowed 2 runs in 6 innings with 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk. But the O's in recent days have had some big offensive games. The O's in their 10-6, 11-inning win at the Rangers on Monday night totaled 10 runs, 15 hits, and 3 walks, went 6 for 17 with runners in scoring position. The 15 hits were 2 homers, 5 doubles, and 8 singles. And the O's in a 22-8 win over the Rays this past Friday night overcame a 6-0 second-inning deficit and scored 17 runs over the 5th through 8th innings. The 22 runs tied for the second most runs by the O's in a regular season game since the franchise moved to Baltimore in the 1953-1954 offseason. The O's in this game on Friday night totaled 22 runs, 21 hits, and 8 walks, went 10 for 21 with runners in scoring position. The 21 hits were 4 home runs, a triple, 9 doubles, and 7 singles. As for the Orioles pitching, well, they're also now more injured in that regard. The O's on Monday afternoon announced having placed starting pitcher Zach Eflin on the 15-day injured list, retroactive to June 29th. This due to lower back discomfort. And the O's announced having recalled starting pitcher Brandon Young from AAA Norfolk. Things have not been going well for Eflin. He and the Orioles' 11-3 loss to the Rays this past Saturday was really bad for a 3rd consecutive start. He allowed 4 runs in 1 inning. He gave up 5 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 3 singles. He issued no walks and recorded no strikeouts. He threw 28 pitches, 18 strikes versus 10 balls, and he committed a throwing error. He exited the game after the top of the 1st due to lower back tightness, and now he's back on the 15-day IL. Eflin was on the 15-day IL April 9th, retroactive to April 8th to May 11th due to a right lat strain. And he now, for this regular season, has some frightening stats. 12 starts, ERA of 5.95, whip of 1.44. Not good. As for Brandon Young, he lately has been wearing out the path between Norfolk, Virginia, and Baltimore, Maryland. The O's on June 25th announced having recalled Young from Norfolk. He is the Orioles starting pitcher in the 7-0 loss to the Rangers at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on June 25th, officially allowed 4 runs in 4 innings. The O's this past Friday afternoon, June 27th, announced having optioned Young back to Norfolk on Thursday, June 26th, and then the O's on Monday afternoon announced having recalled Young from Norfolk. He was their starting pitcher in the 10-2 loss at the Rangers on Tuesday night. He allowed 3 runs in 4 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were 2 doubles and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded 4 strikeouts. He threw 71 pitches, 43 strikes versus 28 balls. 4 Orioles relievers in this 10-2 loss at the Rangers on Tuesday night combined to allow 7 runs in 4 innings. Matt Bowman allowed 4 runs in 1 2/3 innings. The O's on Sunday morning announced having selected the contract of Bowman from AAA Norfolk and having option reliever Cage Stroud to Norfolk. And Gregory Soto, he on Tuesday night allowed 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. He in the bottom of the 8th allowed 3 runs on a hit by pitch, 2 walks, 3 wild pitches, and a 2-run double. Bad series for the Orioles bullpen so far. 5 Orioles relievers in the 10-6, 11-inning win at the Rangers on Monday night combined to allow 4 runs, 2 earned in 5 2/3 innings. Keegan Aiken allowed 3 runs, 2 earned in 1 inning. He in the bottom of the 10th gave up a 1-out full count 3-run homer by Adolis Garcia on a moonshot to left field to tie the game at 6, despite Garcia having been down in the count at 1.12. The homer went a projected 417 feet per StatCast. Game 3 for the O's at the Rangers. Wednesday night at 8:05, Tomoyuki Sagano will be the Orioles starting pitcher, and who knows what to expect from him. He had been having a good season, but he and that Orioles a 22-8 win over the Rays this past Friday night was bad for a 4th consecutive start. He allowed 7 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 9 hits, which were 3 homers and 6 singles. He issued a walk. He recorded 2 strikeouts. He threw 86 pitches, 54 strikes versus 32 balls. Sagano, over his last 4 starts, has seen his ERA for this regular season rise from 3.04 to 4.06. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Thursday show, episode 1105. We'll provide you with more on the Commanders. Also on Thursday show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats are home to the Detroit Tigers for a day-night doubleheader on Wednesday for games 1 and 2 of a 3-game series. Game 1 is at 1:05 p.m. Game 2 is at 6:45 p.m. The O's are at the Texas Rangers Wednesday night at 8:05 in Game 3 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.
I'm excited about the Commanders.